"I'm cutting your access." Bryce Manning said it at 2:15 p.m. on a Tuesday, just like that. No warning, no build-up. I was halfway through updating the certificate vault that controlled a $200 million escrow when she dropped it on the conference table. She didn't even look at me when she said it. Role consolidation, streamlining legacy privileges. Legacy. 16 years of building every system they ran on, and that's what it became in her mouth. Legacy. I'm Neil Cooper, 50 years old, and I'd just watched my career get handed to a kid who thought Stack Overflow was a senior engineer. The room went dead quiet. That corporate kind of quiet where everyone pretends not to notice the execution happening right in front of them. The CFO kept scrolling his tablet. General Counsel blinked slow like he was underwater. And Bryce, our brand new VP of product with an MBA and a blazer that probably cost more than my car, kept talking about efficiency and right-sizing. "Your contributions have been historically valuable," she said. Historically. Like I was some fossil she'd dug up while renovating. I didn't argue, didn't make a scene, just reached over and closed my laptop. Not like I'd be using it much longer anyway. I looked at the clock, 2:15 p.m., and made a mental note to update my folder when I got home. The one nobody knew existed. The one I called Let Them Learn. Because here's what Bryce didn't know. Every system in that building, every authentication string, every permission level, every failsafe, including the escrow protocol that her precious $200 million deal depended on, all of it ran through one name, Kay Cooper. My mother's name, Catherine. She was a Navy nurse. Vietnam era. Taught me to solder circuit boards when I was 9 years old. Taught me to shut up and watch when everyone else was talking. And when I built that escrow system 7 years ago, I embedded her name so deep in the validator logic that it would take an archaeology degree to find it. Nobody ever asked about it. Nobody ever looked that deep. It worked, so it became invisible, just like me. I left the meeting without a word. Nobody stopped me. My badge still worked, for now. I took the elevator down alone, walked past the break room where some intern was nuking salmon in the microwave, and headed straight for the server room 1 floor below. The door clicked open. Nobody followed. They'd already written me off. Already moved on to whatever buzzword came next on Bryce's checklist. She thought revoking my access was the end of it. Clean break. Fresh start. She had no idea she'd just pulled the keystone out of an arch without asking what it was holding up. At 10:03 p.m. that night, my phone buzzed. Access modification scheduled. I watched the notification glow in the dark of my apartment. One by one, admin privileges started disappearing from the system. Vault access, certificate authority, deployment pipelines, everything. Everything except one. One key stayed right where I'd buried it. Dormant. Waiting. Because Bryce Manning didn't know it existed, and nobody else had bothered to ask. I poured myself a bourbon, neat, and sat by the window. Across the city I could see the office building, lights shutting off floor by floor like a ship going down slow. They were getting ready for the big transition, the Dutch fintech acquisition, $200 million riding on system continuity and compliance approval. Systems I built, protocols I designed. They just didn't know how much yet. 7 years ago, we had a crisis. Transaction rollback failed at 11 p.m. on a Friday. Everyone else went home or started pointing fingers in Slack. I stayed. Me and one junior dev, a vending machine burrito that tasted like cardboard, and a dying Sharpie. While the leadership team spent the weekend drafting liability memos, I sketched out a secure validation chain on a napkin. Multi-stage authentication, redundant certificate checks, encrypted through a personal key registry that couldn't be faked or bypassed. Every escrow release had to pass 3 gates: system hash verification, validator clearance, private key authentication. If any stage failed, the whole thing locked down. No override button, no emergency skip, just a hard stop until a registered fallback authority signed off. That fallback authority? Kay Cooper. I didn't pick my mother's name for sentiment. I picked it because it was real, because it mattered. Because if I was going to build something that couldn't break, I needed to trust it with something I actually gave a damn about. Catherine Cooper taught me that systems fail when people rush to take credit. She taught me to build things that last, even if nobody remembers your name. The protocol worked perfectly for 7 years, never failed, never glitched, and because it never caused problems, it faded into the background. Just another piece of infrastructure nobody thought about, just like the guy who built it. Then Bryce Manning walked in with her fresh vision and decided to strip out the old guard. Never asked how things worked, never checked the documentation, never wondered if maybe, just maybe, there was a reason that quiet guy in the corner had been there for 16 years. She just swung the axe and called it progress. I reopened my archive that night, not because I wanted revenge, because I needed to see it was still there. Every line of code, every commit log, every certificate chain, every time-stamped validation record. All of it clean and untouched. I started pulling it together into one folder. Full system specs, key lifecycle docs, fallback authority logs, screenshots from admin dashboards with my name right there next to key custodian, K. Cooper. Even the old Slack threads where I'd recommended we document this stuff properly. They'd all been marked low priority and forgotten. I labeled the folder with the kind of clarity that comes from 16 years of being ignored. Let them learn. Bryce thought cutting my access was the end. She didn't realize she'd just locked herself out of her own building, and I wasn't about to hand her the spare key. For 3 days I watched it unfold from a distance. Emails flying, transition documents getting drafted, my name vanishing from every version like I'd never existed. Nobody reached out. Nobody asked for a handoff meeting. Nobody requested one single piece of institutional knowledge. Bryce handed the escrow module to Tyler Nash. 27 years old, boot camp graduate, the kind of guy who thinks Git is optional if you're careful. His Slack bio said Code Ninja with a little emoji sword. I watched them prep for the buyer's compliance call through the glass wall. Bryce pacing around reciting buzzwords. Tyler nodding with panic in his eyes. The CEO sipping coffee from a mug that said world's best strategist. Around 4 p.m. on Friday, I got an email from Bryce's assistant. Subject, compliance sync. Confirming attendance. Body, just confirming you won't be attending Monday's call. I replied with one word. Correct. Then I closed my laptop, unplugged my charger, and left the office 20 minutes early for the first time in 3 years. Walking out felt like watching someone set up fireworks backwards. Everyone smiling and excited, completely unaware they were standing on the launch pad. They'd erased me from every document, every presentation, every transition checklist. But the system didn't care about PowerPoints. It cared about keys. And no matter how many times Bryce practiced her pitch, she couldn't unlock a vault she didn't know existed. I'd built the foundation. I knew exactly where the cracks were. And on Monday morning, they were going to find out. The first alert hit at 2:08 a.m. I was awake. I'm always awake these days. Not insomnia, just 16 years of running back-end systems that taught my body to wake up when something breaks. The notification lit up my phone on the nightstand. Alert. Key validation attempt failed. IP external. Protocol. Escrow transfer stage 3. I stared at it for a minute. Then I put the phone face down and closed my eyes. They were testing the system. Had to be. Nobody ran escrow protocols at 2 a.m. unless they were trying to get ahead of Monday's compliance call. Some poor engineer probably got voluntold to just make sure everything works before the Dutch team logged on. Except everything didn't work. Because stage 3 validation required a key that exactly one person on the planet could authorize. And that person was currently lying in bed, 7 miles away, not lifting a finger. I didn't log in, didn't check the error codes, didn't even look at who triggered it. Why bother? The system was doing exactly what I built it to do. Locked down tight when someone without proper authorization tried to force their way through. At 4:45 a.m. my phone buzzed again. Error. Escrow access denied. Key authority not found. There it was, the full stop, the brick wall, the moment when the system stopped being polite and started saying no in a language even management could understand. I got up, walked to the kitchen, and made coffee. The old percolator bubbled and hissed while the city outside stayed dark. Somewhere across town, in that glass tower, someone was probably sweating through their shirt right now. Probably Tyler, poor kid. Probably hitting refresh over and over like that would magically fix a 7-year-old security protocol he didn't know existed. My phone kept buzzing. I left it on the counter and took my coffee to the window. I could picture it. Engineers scrambling in Slack. Someone pinging the buyer's team with a small technical delay. Legal pulling up old contracts trying to figure out who built what and when. And Bryce was probably still asleep, dreaming about her big Monday morning presentation, completely unaware that her entire deal was currently face-planted into a system she'd been too busy to understand. The sky started turning pink around 6. My phone had gone quiet for a bit, then suddenly exploded with notifications, all at once, like someone had just escalated to full panic mode. I picked it up and scrolled through. 18 missed calls, 12 Slack messages, 3 emails marked urgent. I opened none of them, just set the phone back down and finished my coffee. At 6:07 a.m. the email arrived. Subject line, urgent, escrow verification failure. I opened it. Short, direct, radioactive. We are unable to verify Stage 3 escrow key authority. System logs reference K. Cooper as fallback validator. Please advise immediately. Who is K. Cooper? 4 words at the end that probably made someone's stomach drop through the floor. Who is K. Cooper? I put my phone in my pocket, laced up my boots, and headed out for my morning walk. 6 blocks to the coffee shop, same route I'd taken for 10 years. Past the bakery that always smelled like burnt sugar. Past the bodega with the cat in the window. Normal Tuesday morning in every way except one. Except across town, a $200 million deal was quietly coming apart at the seams. My phone buzzed the entire walk, short bursts, long vibrations, group chats lighting up. I could feel the panic through the phone case, but I didn't look, just kept walking, kept my pace steady, let my boots hit the sidewalk in rhythm with whatever chaos was unfolding in that conference room. Back at the office, I found out later, legal had already called an emergency meeting by 6:15. One of the partners pulled out my original employment contract. Another one started digging through archived JIRA tickets, looking for anything with my name attached that might explain who this mystery keyholder was. The general counsel asked IT to trace the validator ID back to a person. Its answer, we don't know who K. Cooper is. Of course they didn't, because K. Cooper wasn't in the employee directory, wasn't on any org chart, wasn't listed in payroll under that name. It was a ghost in the machine, a name I'd buried 7 years ago when nobody else wanted to take responsibility for building something that actually mattered. And now that ghost was the only thing standing between them and their big exit. By 7:15 a.m., the emergency board call was already live. I know because Tyler sent me a Slack DM. Just 2 words. Please help. I didn't respond. The CEO was on camera. So was Bryce, looking like someone who just realized she'd walked into the wrong exam. The CFO, general counsel, half a dozen others, all staring at their screens with that specific expression people get when they realize they're in over their heads and the water's still rising. The buyer's team was on the line too, their compliance director, their legal team, some guy whose title was just principal oversight, which probably meant he was the one with the power to kill the whole deal with one email. Someone asked the question, who built the current escrow system? Silence. Long, heavy silence. The kind that costs money. The CEO looked around his screen like the answer might materialize. Legal glanced sideways. The CTO, guy who hadn't written actual code since the 90s, cleared his throat but said nothing. Bryce opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. Finally, someone from compliance spoke up, quiet, almost apologetic. Neil Cooper built it, the original validator stack, all of it. That was 7 years ago. Just like that. Boom. The CEO turned to look at Bryce. Not physically, they were all on Zoom, but the energy shifted. Temperature dropped about 10 degrees. Is that true? He asked. Bryce looked like someone just told her the building was on fire and she was holding the only extinguisher. I was told he wasn't critical to the transition. Who told you that? Legal asked. Bryce didn't answer. The buyer's compliance director leaned into her camera. Her voice was calm, professional, absolutely final. We need him. Not optional. We need Neil Cooper to validate this system, or we cannot proceed. That's when legal did something I'd never seen them do. They overruled the chain of command right there on the call. We're adding Neil to this meeting, one of the partners said. Right now, Bryce tried to object. He's the fallback authority. Legal cut her off. He is the system. My phone rang at 7:26 a.m. I was back home by then. I let it ring through to voicemail. 2 minutes later, a Zoom invite hit my email. I clicked it, joined the call. No video, no mic, just a black square with 2 letters, N. Cooper. Nobody said anything for 6 full seconds. I could see Bryce staring at my blank square like it was a judge reading her sentence. The CEO looked tired. The CFO looked pissed. Tyler looked like he wanted to disappear. The buyer's lead tilted her head, studying my empty square with professional curiosity. Finally, the CEO spoke. "Neil, can you confirm you built the current escrow protocol?" I didn't answer. Not yet. Just let that question hang there in the digital air. Let them sit with it. Let the weight of what they'd done wrap itself around their throats. Because sometimes silence says more than words. Sometimes you don't need to shout. You just need to let people realize what they've lost. They cut me out, erased my name, handed my life's work to someone who couldn't spell SSH, and now they needed me to save them. I reached for my mouse, hovered over the unmute button, and smiled. At 7:48 a.m., I unmuted. "Check your inbox," I said. 3 words, that's all. Then I muted again and waited. I'd written the document the night before, sitting at my kitchen table with a bourbon and my laptop, laying out exactly what it would take to fix their problem. Not because I was being petty, because I'd spent 16 years watching people take credit for work they didn't do, and I was done with it. The PDF was simple, clean, professional. Title, Reinstatement Terms, N. Cooper. Clause 1, Full Systems Access Restored, Administrative Vault Credentials, Deployment Pipelines, Audit Logs. Nothing gets changed without my written approval. Clause 2, Bryce Manning will step back from all technical oversight. System architecture, escrow validation, infrastructure management, compliance reporting. She can keep her title and her office, but not the keys. Clause 3, permanent record entered into board governance minutes, documenting that I built the escrow system, the fallback architecture, the validator logic. All of it. My name goes in the official record where it should have been 7 years ago. No drama, no revenge fantasy, just terms, legal terms that made it clear I wasn't begging to come back. I was offering them a way out of the hole they'd dug. Papers shuffled on the call. Someone's keyboard clicked. I watched the little indicators that showed people were reading. The buyer's lead counsel spoke first. "These terms are reasonable, not a debate, not a negotiation. Just a professional acknowledgement that the person they'd tried to erase was now the only one who could save them." The CEO sighed. You could hear it through the mic. "Neil, can we agree to these terms?" I let the question sit there for a moment. Power lives in the pause, in letting people understand what they're really asking for. "Add a line to Clause 3, I said. Language stating that removal of system authorship without documented transfer constitutes a breach of internal controls. More keyboard sounds. The lawyer typed it in. I could feel the resentment coming through the screen like heat off asphalt. "Done," the CEO said. "Anything else?" "No," I said. "That's it. The documents got signed digitally. E-signatures. Timestamps. 7:59 a.m. Neil Cooper, reinstated. Not with a welcome back party, not with an apology, just with full vault access and the kind of authority that meant next time someone tried to write me out of history, the system itself would stop them." I didn't celebrate. Just opened my terminal, logged in with the restored credentials, and watched the access lights flip green one by one. Bryce was still on the call, still breathing heavy into her mic, still pretending she had any cards left to play. But the game was over, and I wasn't playing anymore. I was running the table. By 8:17 a.m., someone from legal was briefing the buyer's team. Clean, clinical, like reading a medical chart. Escrow protocol failed stage 3 validation. Fallback authority signature required. Original architect will handle validation personally. No spin, no excuses, just the facts. The buyer's compliance director nodded. "We'll wait," she said, "but it needs to be Neil Cooper, no one else." The CEO sent me the final countersigned letter at 8:24. Subject line, reinstatement executed. Body, thank you, please proceed accordingly. I read it twice, forwarded it to my personal archive, labeled it Resurrection Protocol because I've always had a thing for dramatic folder names. They wanted me in the office, in person, the main conference room at 9 a.m. I showed up at 8:55, walked through the lobby like I'd never left. Badge still worked. They'd reactivated it fast. Took the elevator up. Walked past the same break room, the same glass walls, the same people who'd watched me get cut without saying a word. The conference room went quiet when I walked in. Bryce sat with her blazer unbuttoned, staring at the table. The CIO wouldn't make eye contact. Legal sat straight-backed, ready to document everything. The CFO looked like he'd aged 5 years overnight. "I don't think this is necessary," Bryce started. The CFO cut her off like a blade through paper. "You almost lost us $200 million because you couldn't be bothered to ask who built what. Sit down. Be quiet." She sat, faster than I expected. I pulled out my laptop, opened it, logged in. The terminal came up clean. Black background, white text, cursor blinking like a heartbeat. I navigated through the directory structure, deep into the validator code, the place where only 3 people had ever looked, and 2 of them didn't work here anymore. There it was, my work, 7 years old, untouched, perfect. I typed 1 line. Execute escrow, validation auth, K. Cooper confirm. True, hit enter. The screen paused. Thought about it. Then blinked green. Status, validated. Stage 3 passed. Transfer window authorized. Done. Over the speakerphone, I heard the buyer's team murmuring. Someone from compliance noting the timestamp. The legal rep nodding even though we couldn't see her. "We're clear," she said. "We can proceed." Relief flooded the room like air into a vacuum. You could practically see it coming off people in waves. "Thank you, Neil," the CEO said. Formal, measured, but genuine. "You're welcome," I said. No emotion, just professional courtesy. Because that's the thing about real competence. It doesn't need to gloat, doesn't need to swagger around making speeches. It just logs in, types 1 line of code, and saves your whole company while you're still trying to remember your password. They watched my screen like it was some kind of miracle, like maybe if they stared long enough, they'd understand how 16 years of invisible work had just saved their careers. But I don't explain miracles. I just write code that works. Bryce didn't come back after lunch. I heard about it from Tyler, actually. He came by my desk. Yeah, they'd given me my desk back around 1:30, looking nervous. "Security just walked her out," he said quietly. HR was with them. I nodded, didn't say anything. "I'm sorry," Tyler added. "About everything. I didn't know. About the system. About you building it." She just handed me this binder and said, "It's fine," I said. "You didn't know what you didn't know." He nodded, looked relieved. Kid wasn't malicious, just in over his head. Not his fault someone handed him a nuclear reactor and said, "Keep it running." "If you want to learn how it actually works," I said, "come find me tomorrow. I'll walk you through it." His face lit up. "Really?" "Yeah. But bring coffee. Good coffee, not break room stuff." He practically ran off. At 10:03 p.m., same time they'd scheduled my access revocation exactly 1 week earlier, I walked into the boardroom. In person this time. Not virtually. The room was different now. Same table, same chairs, but the people looked at me different. Not with pity or dismissal, with something closer to fear or respect. Sometimes those look the same. The CEO was there. So was the CFO. Legal. A few others. "Neil," the CEO said, standing up. Gesture of respect. Or maybe just caution. "We'd like to discuss making this permanent." I waited. He nodded to legal, who slid a folder across the table. I opened it. New offer letter. Base salary increased. Title upgraded to Chief Infrastructure Officer. Full oversight authority across all technical verticals. But the line that mattered was at the bottom. Equity, 3.5% of the company. Vested immediately. Plus performance triggers that could bump it higher. Not stock options you had to wait 4 years to see. Ownership. Real ownership. The kind that shows up on cap tables and quarterly reports. "You've earned this," the CEO said. "We want to make sure your contributions are never overlooked again." I looked around the room. These same people had watched me get sidelined a week ago without a word, had let Bryce scrub my name from every document like I'd never existed, had handed my life's work to someone who didn't know what he was holding. But now, they were offering me a seat at the table, not out of kindness, out of necessity. because they'd learned what happens when you try to run a building without knowing where the foundation is. I tapped the folder once. K. Cooper accepts, I said. The CFO smiled. Not a polite smile, a real one. He'd been the only person in that building who'd cut through the panic and said what needed saying. Who'd told Bryce to sit down and be quiet. Who'd understood from the start that this wasn't about feelings, it was about function. He nodded once, respect acknowledged. I picked up the folder and walked out. I didn't go home right away. Took the stairs down to the server room instead. The elevator worked fine, but I've always trusted steel more than software. The door opened with a click, same sound it had made for 16 years. I stepped inside and let it close behind me. The hum wrapped around me like a blanket, low, steady, the sound of systems doing exactly what they were built to do. I sat down at the terminal, logged in with my restored credentials. The screen came to life, cursor blinking, waiting for instructions. I pulled up the validator logs, scrolled through the entries from the past week. Every failed attempt, every error message, every desperate retry at 3 a.m. when someone thought maybe, just maybe, hitting it one more time would work, all of it pointing back to the same place. K. Cooper, the name nobody asked about, the ghost in the machine that saved their whole company. I opened a new terminal window and typed, hash reset authority keys. The system prompted, confirm reset of primary authority credentials. I typed, Y, new registration required. Primary authority, I typed, N, Cooper secondary. Fallback, I typed, K, Cooper. The screen blinked. Processing, then, authority keys updated, dual authentication active, logs, timestamp, 10:47 p.m. No more ghosts, no more hidden names, just mine, clear and documented. If someone wanted to know who built this, who maintained it, who kept it running when everyone else was busy making PowerPoints, they'd see it right there in the system logs. Not revenge. Correction. I saved the logs, backed them up, sent copies to 3 different secure locations including my personal encrypted drive. Then I logged out, shut down the terminal, and stood up. The server room hummed on without me. It always had, it always would. That's the thing about building something right. It doesn't need you to babysit it. It just needs you to set it up correctly from the start. I walked back upstairs. The office was mostly empty now. Cleaning crew making their rounds. A few lights still on in corner offices where someone was probably still trying to catch up from the chaos of the day. My desk had a new nameplate. They'd moved fast. Neil Cooper, Chief Infrastructure Officer. Next to it, someone had left a handwritten note. Thank you for saving us. The team. I read it once, folded it, put it in my laptop bag. The team. Funny how I became the team the second they needed me. For 16 years I'd been legacy, historical, something to be consolidated and streamlined. But the moment their $200 million deal hung in the balance, suddenly I was essential. I wasn't bitter about it, just clear-eyed. Because that's how it works. You can spend years building the foundation while everyone else builds their careers on top of it. And they'll never notice you until the ground shifts and they realize they're standing on something someone actually built. My phone buzzed. Text from the CEO. Appreciate your professionalism today. Looking forward to working together. I typed back, understood, that's all. No thanks for the opportunity or excited to be back, just acknowledgement. Because this wasn't a fresh start or a redemption arc. This was a correction of something that should never have happened in the first place. I packed up my laptop, my charger, the coffee mug I'd left on my desk a week ago that someone had washed and put back. Small kindness, probably from Tyler or one of the other engineers who knew what I'd actually done around here. On my way out, I passed Bryce's old office. Dark now. Empty desk. Computer monitor dark. Someone had already started packing her things into boxes. Corporate efficiency. One day you're restructuring roles. Next day, you're a cardboard box and an exit interview. I didn't feel good about it. Didn't feel bad either. Just felt like cause and effect, like a system running the way it was designed to run. You pull the wrong piece out of a machine, the machine stops working. That's not revenge, that's just physics. The elevator ride down was quiet, just me and my reflection in the polished steel doors. 50 years old. Gray at the temples. Lines around the eyes from 16 years of staring at screens in dark server rooms. But still here. Still standing. Still the guy who knew where the bodies were buried because I was the one who built the graveyard. Outside, the September air was cool, felt good. I walked to my car, threw my bag in the passenger seat, and sat there for a minute before starting the engine. My phone lit up one more time. Message from Tyler. Coffee at 9 a.m. tomorrow? I want to learn everything. I smiled, typed back, make it 8:30, and bring a notebook. The kid would be fine. He was eager, willing to admit what he didn't know. That put him ahead of 90% of people in this industry. Give him a couple years of actual mentorship instead of YouTube tutorials, and he'd be solid. Maybe that was the real lesson in all of this. Not that I got my revenge or proved everyone wrong, but that systems need builders, real builders. People who care more about making things work than making things look good on a slide deck. People like Catherine Cooper, my mother, Navy nurse who came home from Vietnam and spent 30 years working in a VA hospital, fixing things that everyone else said were too broken to fix. Who taught me that the most important work is usually invisible, that if you're doing it right, nobody notices until something goes wrong. She died 8 years ago. Never got to see what I built with her name. Never knew that her signature was protecting millions of dollars and keeping systems honest, but I think she'd be proud, not because I won some corporate showdown, but because I built something that lasted, something that worked, something that didn't need me to defend it because it defended itself. I started the car, pulled out of the parking lot. The office building disappeared in my rearview mirror, all lit up against the night sky like nothing had happened. But something had happened, something important. A company almost destroyed itself because it forgot who built its foundation. And one guy reminded them, not with anger or speeches or drama, but by letting the system speak for itself. Because that's what good systems do. They remember, they keep records. They don't lie or forget or rewrite history. They just execute the code they were given and wait for someone to ask the right question. And when that question finally comes, who is K. Cooper? They answer with perfect clarity. Me. It's me. It was always me. I drove home through empty streets, bourbon waiting on the counter, blues guitar queued up on my phone, and a title on my business cards that finally matched the work I'd been doing all along. The system remembered, and now, finally, so did everyone else. Tomorrow I'd teach Tyler how to read validator logs. Next week I'd document the escrow architecture properly with my name in every header file. Next month I'd present to the board about infrastructure investments they'd been ignoring for 5 years. But tonight I'd sit by my window, drink my bourbon, and watch the city lights flicker like a million tiny systems, all of them running on foundations somebody built. Somebody who probably never got thanked. Somebody who knew that the real work happens in the invisible places. Somebody like me. The foundation guys always get forgotten. Until the building starts to fall. Then they remember. They always remember.